Good. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Gordon, for allowing me the opportunity to share with you all a little bit about this innovative incubator that we've started at Wells Fargo. And we're lucky today to have some of my partners in crime, if you will, for this program. And so these are very esteemed guests. I can't read their bios. I would be up here all day. But you have a little bit of information on them in the program. So as Gordon mentioned, I'm Ashley Grosh, Vice President at Wells Fargo in the Sustainability Group, working on sustainability initiatives across the enterprise. I have Richard Adams here from the National Renewable Energy Lab, Bev Alexander, from UC Berkeley, and then Oren Shetrit is one of our entrepreneurs that we've worked with. And so I want to share a little bit about how Wells Fargo is thinking about sustainability, innovation, communities, this resiliency notion. And so we have just a few minutes, so I'm not going to go on for forever here. But so we, at Wells Fargo, just a little bit of the commercial, because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you a little bit about us. So we're the largest bank in the world based on market cap right now. We've got $1.8 trillion in assets, 70 million customers, 265,000 team members, and over 90 lines of business, so pretty significant. And the other thing you may not know is we have a very strong environmental commitment throughout the company that we created in 2012, putting some really hard targets across our business, across our footprint. So I'll talk a little bit about that and then drill down into this incubator program we developed. So in terms of our buildings and our footprint and managing that in a sustainable way, we've got 100 million square feet of real estate across the globe. And so we need technology solutions. We need a lot of help in managing that footprint here in California, managing the water. Just the energy efficiency profile of all those buildings is very complex. We've made a big commitment there in reduction efforts. We have the largest LEED certified square footage of any financial institution in the world. So our buildings is a big part of our environmental commitment. Secondly is our customers. So you may or may not know we're a leader in renewable energy and environmental finance. Since 2005, we've invested $52 billion in environmental finance activities. So a lot of that's been the tax equity power purchase, but a really significant part of our business and will continue to be going forward. And then the last piece is the community piece. So we've got one of the largest corporate foundations in the world, and so we created a $100 million environmental philanthropy commitment, and that's a program that I manage to be able to do grants and fund things and fund events like this. But really looking at resiliency, funding environmental projects across the communities that we operate. But really we were looking across that commitment, so in those three areas, as a way to connect the dots between those three silos. And for me, the experience was I was going out on the road and meeting with accelerators and incubator programs, and I was coming across all of these entrepreneurs that had green buildings technologies, but it was sort of the same story of the valley of death. And I kept thinking, gosh, we could use some of these technologies in our buildings. And so we started working with NREL and some of these other partners and some of these entrepreneurs and thought about how can we, Wells Fargo, leverage our assets, leverage our buildings, leverage our environmental finance expertise, and then leverage the corporate foundation to help be a catalyst and accelerate some of these technologies and pull them maybe into the industry at a faster rate. And so that's where, in 2014, we created this program called the Wells Fargo Innovation Incubator. You can read a little bit about it there. It's a 5-year, $10 million grant from the Wells Fargo Foundation made to NREL, who is the administrator for the program. And what's really unique is then NREL is able to work with select entrepreneurs in the commercial building space to provide non-dilutive capital, so seed capital, to these startups to help them meet some technical milestones in the lab, really targeting some of the early stage technologies. And then we're helping, so the funding goes to help those technologies in the lab. And the unique sweet spot is then we're opening up doors at Wells Fargo in providing these companies a beta test opportunity to come in to Wells Fargo to help these companies validate their technology with a Fortune 50 company. And so that's really the sweet spot. And we've just gotten started. We've finished one round of funding. And Oren's company was in that first round. We had 4 companies. We're in the middle of round 2 right now. We're just focused on commercial buildings right now because I mentioned that's very material to our business. We need the solutions there. And so this was sort of our answer for how we play in this ecosystem. It's an invitation-only program. It's been getting some recognition. We went out to the White House in June and were asked to present to other corporate foundations on how they might get these programs off the ground. American Banker did a feature on it in August. So if you're interested, you can certainly find out more about it. But I want to, now that I've kind of teed that up, I want to really talk about the partners here, because we couldn't have done this without collaboration. And so, as I mentioned, we've got universities, we have a government lab, and then the key part is the entrepreneurs. And so we couldn't have done this without the collaboration of those people. And so it's really about collaboration. So Richard, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. If you could maybe give the folks the lay of the land in terms of the DOE lab system, and then really what this program has meant for NREL, and some of the services that are happening in what's going on with the entrepreneurs in the program.
Sure. Yeah, no, thanks, Ashley. And thanks for being invited to a forum like this. It's always great to come and attend something that's not necessarily energy focused, and hear about some of the other things that are going on. But I'm Richard Adams. I'm the Director of the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center at NREL, which is the National Renewable Energy Lab. We're based in Golden, Colorado. We're part of the DOE lab system. We're one of 17 national labs around the country. But we are unique in a couple of ways. One is that we're an applied lab, which means we're very focused on what's going on in the marketplace, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. But we're also the only single mission lab. So the scope of our research and development is all around renewable energy, so solar, wind, biofuels, advanced buildings, advanced vehicles, storage, and energy integration. So quite a broad spread there, but we look at the other areas tangentially as well. So what's the impact of energy on water? What's the impact of the traditional energy system on the grid of today and the grid of the future and things like that? And so because we're an applied lab, as I said, we spend a lot of time thinking about what's going on in the marketplace. And our office is really an office that's fairly unique amongst the lab system, in that we sit at the lab gate looking out at what's going on in the ecosystem rather than looking at what's going on inside of the lab with the development of new technologies. So we tend to be technology neutral. We tend to be focused on technologies that are outside the lab system, so outside of the things that NREL are working on. And so this program and this partnership that we have with Wells Fargo, I think, epitomizes where we'd like to see ourselves in the future, and this is a first great step. Basically, as Ashley alluded to, we saw a number of technologies that were out in the marketplace that were, in a sense, languishing because they weren't getting the support of the investment community, which was allowing them to move along that commercialization path. And we think about technologies from the point of view of a continuum. So it's everything from an idea in a researcher's head or an entrepreneur's head, all the way through to a product in the ground or a product on the shelf. And what are all of the things that you need to do to move them from where they are today to where they need to be, and in order to have that impact on the marketplace? And as I said, really we saw the building space as an ideal space to try and hone this model that we have for incubation of moving the technologies along a commercialization path with the support of the researchers at the lab to help them get to a point where they need to be in order for them to have commercial success. And so by applying the brain power that we have at the lab, along with some business services, we're hoping to move these companies through that process a lot more quickly to a point, as I say, where they can be tested on a Wells Fargo building, proven out in the field, and then make that easier for them to then attract capital or new customers. And so they're really the challenges that we're trying to solve, and we think this is a really ideal model that we've created with Wells Fargo to be able to do that.
Great, thank you, Richard. And now I'm going to turn to Beverly, who plays a critical role in this ecosystem as a channel partner for the program. So you might be wondering, how are we sourcing the technologies into the program? So we've got about 29 universities and accelerators and other incubators that are feeding us high quality early stage technologies that are being developed through tech transfer and other programs. And so Beverly is with UC Berkeley and manages a program called Clean Tech to Market. And so could you tell us a little bit about your program and then what this partnership has meant?
Yeah, and if you want to switch to the slide that shows
sure.
where we all are in the ecosystem, we saw the same need and issue, which is all these amazing technologies getting stuck in the lab. And so from Berkeley, we're the #1 public university in the world, and we have 92% of our graduate programs are in the top 10% nationally, or top 10 rank nationally. And even with that kind of a talent pool, we're still seeing this struggle of getting out of the lab and into the marketplace, and this end-to-end blending of capital and pilot and demonstration and the deployment is just so critical. We're just so delighted to be a feeder into this model. We would love to see more people replicate this model, and we're so happy Wells is doing it and going on the road. Our secret sauce is that we take this phenomenally talented pool of graduate students and we wrap them, or we take a technology, we wrap it with graduate students from business, law, engineering, sciences, policy, and we have them do a really intensive 15-week market assessment for these technologies on looking at core target markets, early stage versus later stage markets. And Berkeley, as you know, is among many other things the home of the free speech movement. It attracts a lot of free thinkers and extremely creative thinkers, and so our students are wildly creative in the markets that they come up with. We actually redirected a biofuels enzyme into a dairy cleaning operation that saves about 50% of the water, which makes more water available for cities. So that's the kind of creative twist that these students will put on things. But even with the world's more Nobel Prize winners than anybody, the best graduate students in the world, you still need a place to get out in this market. We say it's a huge privilege to be able to get to the second valley of death, which is the valley of death that most people talk about. The first valley of death, which Oren knows really well, is getting out of the lab. And so a lot of times we find that technologists and scientists have been deep in their research and they're very fixated on a limited set of markets. And so we try to blow those doors wide open, find better target markets for them to get to scale. We call it stair steps towards saving the world, which is you sometimes have to do some smaller markets first before you hit these massive commodity-driven energy markets. But in doing that and in pairing money and all the things that Ashley's offering, we've had actually a 20% success rate, which is very high in the innovation space. So we've moved 300 graduate students, about 100 scientists, about 1,000 professionals in the role of mentorship through the program, about $150 million in follow-on funding and a 20% startup success rate. So it's been a very successful model, and we've been really pleased to be partnered with people like you. So.
Thank you. Terrific. And thank you. I borrowed this graph from you guys.
We love this graph. It's great. We're all in that first valley of death.
That's right. So just to point out quickly, right, so banks normally are over at the exit point. And so for us, it's really unique to be playing in this earlier space. But next, I want to turn it over to Oren because the program is really focused on entrepreneurs. And so we're really excited because he is in our inaugural class. And so we just had 4 companies that we funded. And so, Oren, can you give the folks a little high level on the technology that you founded and then a little bit about the milestones that you're hoping to make at NREL?
Sure, yeah. So I guess as a bit of background, my co-founder and I came from a national lab in which we were leading research in smart grid and energy analytics. And one of the problems that we had time and time again is that for any of the work that we did, we needed energy data. The problem that we face there is that energy data is traditionally really expensive and really difficult to get. You need to hire electricians. In a lot of cases, that's union labor. You need to shut down power, take apart panels. And for us, it was a huge, huge issue and a huge pain point, and it was a deal breaker for a lot of projects. And so we got together and started talking about some of the research that my co-founder was doing at the time, which was around non-intrusive energy metering. And what we ended up developing and spitting out of the lab was a really small energy meter. I have one in my pocket, happens to be, that's this big, that has an adhesive back. You peel it back off and stick it to the circuit breaker you're interested in. And we measure power wirelessly, which means that any of you can do it without an electrician, without shutting down power, and it's about 10 to 20 times cheaper in hardware alone, not to mention all of the other costs associated with it. The problem is that when we decided that we wanted to start the company, we didn't yet have a license for it. We were a hardware company, which in Silicon Valley, at least, is almost a bad word. And none of the investment community would touch us. And so when we heard about the program that Wells Fargo and NREL had, we really lit up because it was an opportunity for us to get a partner, get some initial funding, and have kind of at least the beginning of a roadmap of how we were going to demonstrate the technology, demonstrate market feasibility, and then show how the technology could scale using Wells Fargo's real estate portfolio as an initial, kind of like an initial test bed for us. And then on top of that, we also would get access to NREL's testing facilities and their world-class research staff, which was also fantastic for us. So things kind of, I would say, worked out almost exactly as I imagine Ashley and the Wells Fargo team had planned, in that we got accepted into the program. That program kind of kickstarted us. We then got in with them and started testing the technology. Since then, we landed a fairly big pilot with PG&E and BMW, showcasing smart electric vehicle charging and managing all of the energy data behind that. And we raised a seed round and have hired a few employees and kind of are off to the races. And so, you know, I would say that we are now climbing that purple curve with a massive help from all of these partners. And so we're really grateful for it.
Great, terrific. Well, thank you. I know, you know, it's not all rainbows and roses, and Gordon asked us to touch on some of the challenges that we have faced, and so I'm going to start a little bit thinking about building a program like this inside a big company like Wells Fargo that's been around since 1852. Required a lot of patience and a lot of persistence, and so really kind of starting from the ground up. I probably put together about 150 different PowerPoints and took those and really kind of championed them with Richard's help and NREL's help, but really to get this off the ground, to get the right buy-in. And so the other, I think, core value of our program that we're doing is really the open source model. And so we're being fully transparent in terms of the process, in terms of the experience, the channel partners, how the process is going. We're open to a lot of feedback and working with all the different partners to improve it as we go, because it is a pilot at the moment. As I mentioned, we just launched it in 2014. And so for others that are thinking about how do you get something off the ground like this, you know, it takes collaboration and it takes a lot of patience. But now it's really exciting because even internally within the company, I mentioned, you know, 265,000 team members. People are reaching out from all different lines of business saying, how can I be a part of this? Or they're sending referrals, and we're getting our executives, we're getting our green teams involved, certainly the real estate folks. And so it's really kind of been a connecting point within our company, helping us keep a pulse on innovation, and then also finding a way to connect back to our customers, because we've got a large commercial real estate, even in the residential space, thinking about some of these technologies, how they might apply there. And so I guess my advice for others that are trying to do some innovative things is to be very patient, to be open to a lot of feedback. You've got to be flexible to a lot of different ideas and can't go in with the way you think it's going to work, because it certainly changes. And then you can imagine the complexity of two highly regulated industries, an NREL, a DOE, even a university system, right, and a large bank working together. You know, so we figured those complexities out. There was a lot of paperwork and agreements that we had to come to, but we're happy we're here today. So Richard, can you just talk a little bit about, you know, maybe some of the challenges, but then the opportunities too going forward?
Yeah, you know, I think for us the challenge wasn't so much getting the lab to buy into doing this. It's something that, you know, certainly our executive management was very interested in doing. I think it was more a case of trying to get our researchers to understand, you know, the speed of business and operating in that speed of business, and they've done a phenomenal job of doing that. In fact, one of them's here today. So I can't say enough about the support we get from the research side and the engineering side inside the lab, but there are so many components to this. You know, we've got the stakeholders, we've got our researchers, we've got the startup companies, we've got, you know, our champions. And you know, trying to communicate to all of those people in an effective manner has probably been one of the greatest challenges that we've had. And we really are on a continuous improvement model. Every time I see Ashley, there's one more thing that we could change or make better. So we went into it with that mindset that, you know, we had a starting place, we had what we thought was a great idea, and that we were always going to be flexible about, you know, modifying that as we went along. And we found that for the most part, the program as we laid it out, certainly in our own minds, has been a huge success. And it's really the incremental things at the very edges, at the margins, that we've had to change in order to continue to make it better. So we look forward to continuing to do that as we go along, and, you know, we're excited about what the future holds.
And Beverly, to you as well, because you mentioned it, you know, even with all that talent, it's difficult to even spin things out. And so you know, maybe some internally, you guys are so dynamic, but how do you as a university kind of connect all those dots? And
yeah, well, I used to call clean tech to market my favorite three-ring circus, and these stories are resonating so deeply with me. We created the program from the ground up as well, and it was the same thing. There was no immediate place for it. In fact, it started as spontaneously as a partnership between the students and the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, trying to get together to commercialize things. They brought in some faculty to grow it, and I was creating our marketing materials on my Mac, and you know, building my first website, which I'd never done before. I'm a former senior vice president from PG&E. I had no staff. You know, running an organization of 8,000 down to if anything's going to get done, I have to do it. You know, so it just that whole startup. And anytime you do anything in the innovation space, you're a startup, and you have to go through all those things. And we have all these students, and one of the issues is there's a lot of noise in the space, and it's really bouncy. We lived through the era of, you know, you could drive down Sand Hill Road and money would fly in. VCs were the boom, and then they completely busted, and all of a sudden nobody could get funding. We were having boom bust with our own funding. Wells Fargo also funds clean tech to market. We're very, very grateful for that. But it's that the bounciness of the market and the bounciness of the players and the fact that you yourself are a startup in the midst of a bunch of startups, and it's a crazy three-ring circus. But you have to be persistent, like any good startup CEO. And I know you'll talk about this. I used to go home and cry sometimes at night, and I just say, no, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this for climate change. I believe in this, and you just have to stay the course, and while all else is going crazy around you, and then try to help your entrepreneurs go through that same process. So we do the same thing, and I'm sure you would like to add to that. So
yeah,
yes,
I mean,
there's entrepreneurs in the room, so
yeah.
please.
Sure, yeah, crying myself to sleep. But
yeah, we all have, right? So
it is very difficult, and I think that part of the problem actually for us is the pace at which the national lab and government system works, and the pace at which startups need to work, and the expectations of investors are just fundamentally different. And the same thing goes for government. And as a startup, you're fighting every day tooth and nail to stay alive and to grow and to show progress. And sometimes the partners that you have, not at all NREL or Wells Fargo, but the partners that we had in having to work with national labs and having to work with tech transfer offices and licensing was just a complete nightmare for us, and completely, you know, impossible to navigate while maintaining this incredibly fast timeless and this expectation for really fast growth. But you know, I couldn't recommend more this program, because they really understood it. They understand that we have to work really fast, and we can't be dealing with, like, you know, week-long decision points and then waiting another month for some other piece of paperwork or something. Like, things have to move fast. And I couldn't recommend the program more in that they understand the issues, they understand they have to move fast, and they give you the freedom that you need in order to prove what you have to prove in the markets that you work in. And so it's been incredibly helpful for us, and at least that part of our challenges.
I would also add that this blend of deployment sites and early stage money and the ability to walk through each of these is so unique and so extremely valuable. A lot of times we're trying to guide our folks to find that from 10 different places. For you guys to put that in one pipeline is invaluable. So.
Yeah, we did go into it with the mentality of, you know, trying to bring the key pieces together and make it simple for people to participate. Right. So, you know, having been a former entrepreneur, I can understand the frustrations that these guys are going through. So we tried to build it in a way that took those frustrations away.
Less weeping.
Yeah.
Well, I guess a little bit of the, let me see what my next slide is here. So just a little bit on the commercial buildings, kind of what we're focusing on. We talked about that kind of inside the building envelope. These are the first 4 companies. Actually, Oren, sorry, I didn't get to update this. It's not Wattstick Systems anymore, Whisker Labs. Right. As we know, sometimes startups go through name changes too. So these were the first 4 companies that got awarded. You can read a little bit more about these through our website in the problems each one of those are addressing within the built environment. And so lastly here, just the last few seconds, I guess sort of the call to action, how we could work with you all. As I mentioned, it's an invitation-only program at the moment, but we're going to be around here today, so we encourage you to seek us out, ask us questions, and then you know, certainly Jesse and Gordon can connect anybody that wants to learn more. But if you can just continue to read about our program and follow along on this journey, we'll hope to be back and continue to update you all. So thanks again for giving us the time, and thank you to all my partners up here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.